What's up, guys? What's up? What's up? What's up? Andre here, Credit360. We're just going to actually go through the playbook to an 850 credit score. Kind of show you guys some of the things you could be doing to try to accomplish what you need to accomplish to actually achieve the credit scores that you need. If you can hear this video, could you please press 1 for me? I just want to make sure that everybody can be heard. If you can please hear this video, please press 1 for me. If you can hear this video, could you please press 1 for me? You just want to make sure that, sorry about that. So how you guys doing today? All right. For those you don't know me, I'm Andre Coakley, president of Credit360, and pretty much what I want to do is I want to enlighten the world today and pretty much give you guys some of the tips and pointers that you could be utilizing to achieve perfect credit scores. Now, whether you're a client of Credit360 or not, that doesn't really matter to me at this point. What really matters is what you can be doing to help get yourself to achieve the credit goals that you want. All right. So we know that multiple different people have different goals. Your goals might be entrepreneurship. We have a lot of clients who are actually trying to open up businesses. They want to build a better lifestyle for their family. They necessarily don't want to work a 9-to-5, and we have individuals who work a 9-to-5 who still want to do extra things to provide for their family, such as entrepreneurship. Doesn't necessarily mean you need to be all in. However, my ultimate goal is to help 1,000 families achieve home ownership. All right. Home ownership is something that's near and dear to me. Those of you who know, I come from the mortgage background. I used to be a mortgage broker. I owned my own mortgage company. And during that time, I got to see a lot of individuals, what we call financially undressed from a credit standpoint. So what I want to do is help these individuals get back on track from a credit standpoint, right? So what better way to do that other than to actually put together a little playbook for these individuals to help themselves to see exactly what they can be doing to achieving those goals, all right? So the first thing is, let's just break down who's collecting our data, all right? The 3 individuals who are collecting our data are 3 credit bureaus: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Those are the 3 major credit bureaus. However, there are hundreds of subsidiary credit bureaus that are collecting data on us. Their job is to collect data, provide that data, and they house that data and sell that to other businesses or individuals so they can do risk layering to actually see if they want to loan us money or not, all right? So that's how that works. Now, the other aspect I want to kind of break down is there's a difference between a credit score and a credit report, right? A lot of times individuals come into our office and they're more concerned with a credit score than they are with a credit report, not realizing that their credit report can get them denied, just not a credit score. For example, we have clients who have 700 credit scores who still get denied for certain things that they're trying to acquire from a credit standpoint for the simple fact that they have something on there that the lender or the person who's issuing credit does not like. For example, you can have the most perfect guy, all right? A guy who has a great job. He has a good head on his shoulders. He takes care of his kids, and this is for the ladies, all right? However, if this guy has an STD, even though he has all of the other capacities that you like, this one capacity of an STD might be that exact same reason why you don't want to deal with that person, all right? So from that standpoint, is credit score is one thing. So this guy has a high, I can say, social score. However, there might be that one aspect about it that you don't want to necessarily deal with. So credit score is something, credit report is something totally different, all right? So we just want to break that down. All right. Next thing is, I just want to introduce my book to you guys, An Attempt to Repair America's Broken Credit System. It is now available on Amazon. It was a top seller in some of the categories. I suggest you guys grab it. I wrote it myself. And a lot of people say, well, why'd you write a book if you repair credit? Because I want to give the information. I'm not stingy with information. Everybody knows me. I don't have a problem giving you the tools and tips that you need to be able to acquire whatever you're trying to acquire, regardless if you're paying me or not, all right? So go to Amazon, grab my book. I would greatly appreciate it. I put my time into this, and I put some jewels in here, all right? I've had a lot of individuals told me, based off the information that they were able to find in this book, that they were able to acquire and accomplish the credit goals that they were trying to obtain, and I'm happy for it. So at the end of the day, here, I'm extending this to you guys. Get it on Amazon. You can help me help you, all right? So getting into what you guys are looking at, right? So this is what I call the playbook to an 750 credit score, right? So we have the first category. We have excellent credit, we have good credit, we have fair credit, we have poor, we have very poor, all right? If you see for excellent credit, you have an 850 to a 760 credit score, all right? And what we're going to do is we're going to break down the characteristics of individuals who have an 850 to 760 credit score, all right? And then we're going to do the same thing for good credit, fair credit, poor credit. If you're watching this video, it would be greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated to me if you would share this video, tag this video to someone. These are tools that I normally charge for, and I'm giving it to you for free. Actually, I've never given this playbook out to, on social media to anybody who has not actually paid for services, but at the end of the day, I want to empower 1,000 families to entrepreneurship or actually their financial goals, all right? So first category right here, payment history, all right? Payment history. Payment history equates for 192.5 points of your credit score. Now let me break that down. On the FICO credit scoring model, the highest credit score is 850, right? The lowest credit score is 300. That gap in between that 850 and that 300 is 550 points. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break down those 550 points because those 550 points are broken down into 5 categories, and they actually, I will actually give you how much points are actually allocated to each category. Therefore, it can help you actually boost and build your credit. All right. So payment history, 190, well, I'm going to round it up, 193 points of your credit score is based off payment history. Now, payment history is based off of 30-day increments, all right? 30 days, 60-day, 90-day. So what a 30-day late is if I have a payment that's due January 1st, I miss January 1st's payment, then I make that payment on February 1st. So actually January 1st's payment was missed. I'm actually make that payment on February 1st. That's what we consider a 30-day late, a 30-day late, okay? A 60-day late is I had a payment that was due January 1st. I missed that payment. I had a payment due that's February 1st. I missed that payment. And then I had a payment that's due that I actually paid on March 1st. So I missed January, I missed February, I made March. That's a 60-day late payment. And a 90-day late payment is I had a payment due January 1st. I had a payment due February 1st. I had a payment due March 1st. And I missed all those payments, but I made a payment on April 1st. That would be considered a 90-day late, all right? So now that we got actual payment history and actually the increments of how your late broken down, let's discuss exactly how this actually works and equates to your credit, all right? So here's an example. Let's say I had a payment that's due January 1st, right? I missed January 1st's payment. I missed February 1st's payment, but I make March's payment. That, again, that's a 60-day late. But what a lot of times we don't realize what a rolling 60-day late is, or a continuing 60-day late, or a continuing 30-day late. And that actually pertains to, let's say I had a payment that's due January 1st. I missed January 1st's payment, but I made February, I made March, I made April, I made all the rest of the 11 payments for the rest of the year. Most people think they were only late one time. However, that is going to be considered 11 late payments, even though I missed one payment, all right? Now, a lot of clients will say, well, I only missed one late payment. Why is it showing I was late 11 times? Because think about this. You had a payment that was due January 1st. You missed January 1st's payment, right? You made February 1st's payment. When you made February 1st's payment, what month did that go towards? That really went towards January. When we made actually February's payment, right, that went towards January. Again, then the next month, when we made March's payment, that went towards February. So we're always in the arrears. So each payment that you're making for the subsequent month is actually going to the month prior to that, all right? So that's what we call a rolling 30-day late. Even though you miss one late payment, it will show as 11 late payments if our time frame or marker is a 12-month period, all right? So when we're talking about those payment history, all right, people who have excellent credit scores have 100% of payment history. They don't miss payments, right? So if you're trying to achieve the maximum points in this category, which is 192 points, pretty much you don't want to have late payments, all right? Simply put. But it's kind of funny because even if you had a year's worth of late payments, right, and which is 12 payments, and you miss one payment out of that, you're actually going to have somewhere roughly about an 80 percentile payment history, which means even missing one payment can actually have you totally off the chart. So it's very important not to miss payments, all right? And keep in mind, I have a lot of clients who come in and say, you know what, I pay my bills on time, however, I have low credit scores. Because payment history is just only one category that they're looking at when they're actually trying to judge you from a risk standpoint, all right? I always like to use relationships as an example. That's like a man who comes home every night would be considered a good man in most cases. However, we don't know what other vices he has. He might be a good man who comes home every night, but he might not necessarily have a job, or he might not necessarily work, or he might not necessarily have good hygiene, right? So the other aspects of what requires to say that a person is a good man, the same way it says that you're a good person from a credit standpoint, all right? So people who have good credit, they only miss roughly about 1% of payments. That's not a lot of payments, all right? So roughly out of 7 years worth of payments, if you only miss one payment, you will still have a 99 percentile in payment history. And then fair credit, of course, 98%. So there's very, very little room for error when we're talking about these categories. Now, if we go over here to this side where it says high impact, these are high impact categories, which means payment history plays a very, very big factor on how your credit score is developed. So you want to make sure that you're paying your bills on time, all right? But payment history is one aspect of it, but the other aspect of it is also called derogatory marks, collection accounts, charge-offs, and actually public records. And that's this category here, right? So I have clients who they have active credit cards and active card payments, and they're not behind on payments. They have 100% of payment history in this category. However, they might have a collection or charge off on their credit report. So even though it's a collection or charge off and they have 100% payment history, it's still going to affect their payment history category. So here we have someone who has excellent credit. They have no collections, charge offs, or public records. Someone who has good credit, they might have one or less than one. Now keep in mind, anything that I'm talking about here is not written in stone. Everybody has a different makeup. Everybody responds differently from a credit standpoint. This way, if I was a physician and I was a doctor, I'd give this one person a prescription. He would be okay, it would solve their issue. I give this other person a prescription and now they have nausea. I give this person the prescription, he has a headache. So everybody responds differently from this credit standpoint, all right? So this is just a blueprint or a playbook, but it doesn't mean just because you're meeting all these categories, you will actually have a specific credit score, all right? I like to tell people all the time, I've seen a few 100,000 credit reports. I've never seen two identical reports. So it's very difficult to tell an individual that based off of looking at their data, how they would respond based off of somebody else's response, all right? Same thing with like that doctor. That doctor gives this person a pill, he's okay. I give this person a pill, he has nausea, okay? As a side effect, even though it might solve or cure the original sickness or illness, all right? Next category, credit utilization, all right? This is how much available credit you are using. This is a very big, very big topic, right? I have a lot of clients, again, they pay their bills on time. However, this is the category where a lot of us fail at, all right? Credit utilization, and a lot of us fail in this category is mainly because of the lack of education. We just don't really know what it takes or what it doesn't take in order to achieve and accomplish these categories with credit, right? So credit utilization, 165 points of your credit score goes on based off of how much credit are you using. Credit utilization is a percentile of how much available credit do you have or how much available credit is in usage. So for example, if I have a $1,000 credit card and I'm using a $500 balance on that credit card, I have a 50% usage or 50% utilization on that credit card. Another example, I have a $1,000 credit card and I only have a $100 balance on that credit card. That's considered a 10% utilization. What you're going to do is you're going to take the total amount of available credit and you're going to divide it by the amount that's being used, okay? That's how you get the credit utilization. Now, most people fail in this category because they're normally told that, or they normally think, or the myth is, you would have a good credit score as long as you keep your credit card balances at 30% or less, right? However, what we normally determine, and based off this category, 30% is not going to be adequate. 30% is just adequate or fair. And that's the reason why, is because most lenders and creditors who are actually giving us access to the money, a lender or a creditor would never give you a credit card and tell you don't use it. Think about that. A lender or credit card issuer would never say, here's this money, I don't want you to use it. They always want you to use it. Why? That's how they revenue. That's how they make their money. So think about it. If a lender gives you a $10,000 credit card and you don't use it, how much money did they make? They didn't make any money. All right? So that's why credit utilization normally is kind of misled, because the person who's issuing us those credit cards are telling us the maximum utilization, what we should be using, or the ideal utilization is 30%. In my world, I tell my clients it's the maximum. All right? So the ideal utilization, we're looking here is 1 to 7%. So 1 to 7% is like you eating fruits, nuts, and berries all day, right? And with that diet, it's strictly a nutrient diet. There's no fat if you're eating fruits, nuts, and berries. Very hard to gain weight if you're only on a fruit diet. This fair amount, or 30%, where most people are at, I say that's a McDonald's diet. All right? You're gaining nutrients on that diet, but you're also gaining fat. All right? 30%, you're also gaining nutrients, but you're also gaining fat. Ideally, you want to have the lowest utilization as possible, right? Which is 1 to 7%. A good utilization is 8 to 19%. Most people fall in this category by default. Why? Because the bank tells you to keep your credit cards at 30% or less. And most people don't have the discipline not to use their credit cards, right? A bank is going to also always entice us with credit cards with giving us rewards points. They give us all type of incentives to use the credit card. Why do they do that? Because they want to break your spending cycle early. If you're getting the credit card in the very first week and they're saying, hey, if you use this credit card, if you spend $2,000 on this credit card in 3 months, we'll give you a $250 statement credit. So a lot of people, what they do, they go ahead and they start racking up on the credit card to try to accomplish that $250 statement credit. Now they do rack up the money on the credit card and they do get the actual statement credit. The problem is y'all don't pay off the balances. So now here it is, they gave you $250, but realizing that $250 is still gonna be washed up in interest all over again. Does that make sense? Hold on. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't make sense, all right? So y'all get what I'm saying here, right? Credit utilization is a very, very, very big point. And I'm not going to even discuss the poor and very poor, because at the end of the day, it doesn't make any sense to discuss foolishness. We only need to discuss righteousness, right? So credit card utilization should be 30% or less in dire straits. However, the ideal utilization is 1 to 7%. However, let me discuss 0%. So a lot of people ask me, well, Andre, well, what happens if I have 0 utilization on my credit card? All right. So that's the equivalent to like me saying, what if you don't eat part of that diet? You don't eat at all. Don't get me wrong. You're losing nutrients and you're also losing fat. However, you're not gaining ground. A loss of nutrients and a loss of fat is not necessarily gaining ground, right? At the end of the day, you want to have nutrients, but you don't want to have fat. But negating both of them is not going to be a positive move at all. All right. So that's credit card utilization, right? The next one is age of credit history, right? This is how long you've been in the game. So I like to explain. You have a freshman who has a 4.0 GPA, and then you have a senior who has a 4.0 GPA. Then I ask you, well, who's the strongest? Most people say, well, they both have a 4.0. However, that senior has shown to be able to do it for a duration of time, which means that then he's stronger than the actual freshman. The freshman only might have done it for 1 semester or even 1 year. However, the senior has shown the capacity to do that for multiple years. Therefore, he's a stronger individual. So when we're talking about credit, every time you open up a new credit card, you're shrinking your credit profile. So let's say right now, for an example, I only got 1 credit card, right? And I've had that credit card for a year. So if I have 1 credit card and I've had that 1 credit card for a year, that means I have 12 months worth of payment history, okay? So I have 12 months worth of payment history. Now, let's say, for example, after this year, I want to open up a secondary credit card, my second credit card. So right now, I have 1 credit card with 12 months history. If I open up that second credit card, they're going to take the total amount of credit cards, which is 2 credit cards, and divide that by the total months history I have, which at this time, I only still have 12 months history with 2 credit cards. So I took a 12-month credit profile or a year credit profile. Just by opening up 1 credit card, I've actually shrunk my profile in half, and I only have a 6-month credit history. All right. So it's very, 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 very important to only open up credit when you really need it. We have a lot of individuals who are opening up credit for the simple fact that you're getting approved for it. Don't get me wrong. A lender will give you a credit card knowing that you still don't have the capacity to repay in some cases. It happens every day. That's the reason why bad people, well, let me back that. That's the reason why good people have bad credit. All right? And it's something so simple. All right? So age of credit activity means you want to keep your credit cards open as long as possible. You don't want to close credit cards. The only way I suggest that you close credit cards, number one, if it has an annual fee that's unaffordable or monthly fees attached to it that's unaffordable. All right. If you have a credit card and you're paying annual monthly fees and you're not using that credit card, it might make sense to actually, close that credit card. However, you could be shrinking your average age of activity for the simple fact that you're cutting off the lifeline to that credit card. And while I'm on this, right, age of credit, I have a lot of clients who've had student loans on their credit report. Now, student loans is probably one of the first lines of credit that you obtained if you've gone to college or tried to achieve higher matriculation, right? So a lot of individuals, what they wind up doing is they wind up trying to delete old student loans off their credit report because they feel that it makes the report look cumbersome. There's a lot of trade lines on the report, which I get it, right? However, if you're removing that old trade line off your credit report, you could be shrinking your age of activity very, very, very drastically, because this can be an account. Let's say I had a client the other day, had a student loan on her credit report. It was on her credit report for 10 years. She disputed it on her own and got it removed off her credit report, and then wound up shrinking her credit profile because that took off 120 of on-time payments off of her credit report. All right? So now it didn't look like she was in the game as long as she was, and it shrunk her profile. Therefore, her credit score plummeted. All right? So you want to be very, very careful with opening up credit. You only want to open up credit when it's warranted and needed. All right? The next category is credit mix. All right? This is the different types of credit that you can handle, right? A bank or lender wants to know that you're well versed in your credit, I guess, how can I say, credit, in your credit game. All right? They want to make sure that you can handle different types because it lets them know that that you can handle influence from different levels. All right? So the first one is going to be revolving. All right? So there's three different types of credit. The first one is revolving. A revolving line of credit is like a credit card, and it says it revolves because it revolves forever. The balance is perpetual. As long as there is a balance on that credit card or not a balance, it will continue to actually roll over to the next month. All right? However, the second type of loan is what we call is an installment loan. An installment loan amortizes for a fixed amount of time. That's going to be like a student loan, a mortgage, a car loan. I get a car vehicle today, I get a vehicle loan today. They give me a 5-year loan. As I slowly pay it off on actually year 5, the very last month, I pay the loan off. I paid it off from a $30,000 balance all the way down to a 0 balance, right? So it amortizes. When we say amortizes, as you slowly make the payments, the balances go down on an installment loan, all right? The other type of credit is going to be an open-end line of credit. An open-end line of credit is going to be a charge card, right? I have an American Express Platinum card, and I thought it was a great thing. However, that Platinum card, because it's a charge card, it does damage to my credit score. However, I need to have that credit card so I can actually achieve the optimum credit mix. That way I have revolving lines of credit, which are my credit cards. I have an installment lines of credit, which is my vehicle loan. And then I also have an open line of credit, which is that American Express charge card. All right. So the three types of credit: revolving, installment, open-end lines of credit. All right. Now to break that down is people who have excellent credit have multiple accounts in all three categories. Right. Now 55 points of your credit score is with credit mix. So most individuals who have revolving lines of credit, who have installment loans, and who have open ends of credit in multiple categories are most likely going to achieve this 55 points, right? Now, the individuals who just have good credit, they only have one account in all three categories, right? And then a person who has fair credit could possibly only have 2 of these type of accounts in all three categories, and so on, all right? Now, also attached to that is total amounts or total accounts reporting, right? Now, it's individuals who have multiple accounts have actually more payment pattern, therefore, they're able to have more mistakes than someone who has limited accounts, right? Remember, if I said someone has one account open for 1 year, right, and they've made 12 payments on that, they've only made 12 payments on that year, right? Only 12 payments. However, if that person had 5 accounts, right, and they're making 12 payments a year, now on those 5 individual accounts, now they have 60 payments going in per year versus that individual who only had 1 account showing 12 payments a year. All right. So theoretically is when we're talking about payment history, you want to have years worth of history reporting along with multiple accounts. Now, I'm not trying to tell you to go out here and load up your credit report with accounts just because this is here. However, some of these accounts are accounts that don't even have active balances on them. So an individual who's had old student loans on their credit report that haven't purged off of their credit report, or they have old accounts, most likely they're going to fall in this excellent and good category because they have multiple accounts reporting on the credit report. All right. And keep in mind, these actual categories here are medium and low impact, right? When we're talking about payment history and credit card utilization, those are high impact categories. So we're going to make sure that we're doing everything we can, all right, to adjust ourselves accordingly with the high impact categories and most definitely with the low ones, but the high impact ones affect us more, right? Then the last category is going to be credit inquiries, all right? Credit inquiries is anytime you have somebody run your credit report, right? We got to be very, very, very careful with that as well. Why? Because every time you run your credit report, it has the potential to do damage and lower your credit score. And a lot of people say, well, why, if a bank or lender, if I'm out there shopping my credit, why does it lower my credit score? All right. Because the bank is looking to make relationships with people who only want to have a relationship with them. All right. So the example I like to give, it's like a guy who goes to the club, right? He tries to talk to 20 chicks. He gets to the 21st chick and he's like, baby, you the one. I really want to be with you. Is she going to really take him serious? Most likely not. She's not going to take him serious because she saw him talk to 20 other women before he got to her. Therefore, she knows that he wasn't really entwined with trying to make a relationship with her. He was just having a relationship with her because the other 20 told her no, right? So banks and lenders feel the same way. If you're out there being sleazy and being messy with your credit and out there applying with everybody, they know that there's a risk standpoint, the same way that I would be hesitant to marry a woman who's out there trying to talk to all these different individuals but says she wants to be in a relationship with me. Y'all know what I'm saying. Y'all get it, right? So credit inquiries. The individuals who have, now credit inquiries stay on your credit report for 2 years, right? So if I were to go to Macy's right now, apply for a credit card, when I apply for that credit card, it's actually going to be on my credit report. It's going to stay on my report for 2 years. However, it only does damage for 1 year, all right? So the example I like to give, that's like I cut my arm right here. I go to 3 different, I cut my arm. The scar will be there for 2 years. However, the pain will only be for 1. All right. So be very careful with out there just applying for credit. It can be detrimental to your credit score. I know it seems like a few points here, a few points there. However, we've seen customers not qualify for a mortgage for the simple fact that they went out there and shopped their credit before they actually closed. Right. And then they came to us and they needed us to help them get back on track. So I just want to give you guys the playbook to an 850 credit score. I hope this gives you some light on what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. If you guys have any questions, please most definitely put them below. But if you got some value out of this, I ask you to share this video, tag somebody on it. Actually, go buy my book. If you're lazy, don't want to read the book, just sign up for Credit Repair at Credit360. We'll gladly help you guys out. It's not a big deal. And we know that sometimes credit can be an issue that we don't like to talk about, right? It's like going to the doctor, right? It's like undressing in front of a doctor. I tell people all the time, I got a male doctor, he's a guy, and I got to go in front of this guy and I got to undress in front of another guy. It's uncomfortable as hell. Hell uncomfortable. However, it's hella necessary, right? It's hella necessary in order for me to be diagnosed, because if I don't let him diagnose me, I could be walking around with an illness or a sickness or an ailment that could be detrimental, that probably could have been prevented with being proactive with the solution to cure the problem. All right. So I just wanted to give you guys my tidbit today. As I say, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. If you have any questions, any concerns, just drop them below. I'll be sure to answer them. And if you have any credit questions or concerns, hit us up at Credit360. You can reach us at 305-235-4848, or you can reach us at 866-840-4646 for our toll-free customers, or feel free to hit us up on the website, www.credit360.biz. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I love you. Peace. Oh, I'm still live. Give me 1 second. Still live. Stop share.